The message did not arrive like anything humanity had ever encountered before, nor did it follow any known law of communication or physics. It simply appeared, as if reality itself had momentarily bent to allow a foreign will to speak directly into the fabric of human civilization. Every digital screen, from the smallest cracked smartphone in a rural village to the largest military command displays buried deep underground, flickered simultaneously before resolving into a single unified image, a shifting, multidimensional symbol that seemed to twist in impossible geometry, accompanied by a message written in flawless English that declared Earth had been marked for acquisition and that resistance was irrelevant. At first, confusion reigned, with governments scrambling to identify the source, cybersecurity teams racing to trace what they assumed must be the most sophisticated hack in history, and civilians reacting with everything from disbelief to panic. But the illusion of control shattered completely when massive objects began to appear in orbit without any detectable entry, filling the skies with dark, silent constructs that dwarfed human engineering and blocked out portions of sunlight as they settled into position. These were not exploratory probes or diplomatic envoys. They were instruments of domination, arranged with mathematical precision and terrifying intent. And as global infrastructure began to fail, satellites blinking out, power grids collapsing, communication networks dissolving into silence, it became clear that this was not a demonstration of power meant to intimidate, but the opening move of a conquest already assumed to be successful. Yet beneath the chaos, beneath the fear that gripped billions, there were quiet pockets of motion, hidden layers of preparation that had been built over decades in anticipation of a moment no one could prove would ever come, where humanity, underestimated and dismissed as primitive, would be forced to reveal what it had been quietly becoming. While the surface of the planet descended into disarray, with emergency broadcasts looping fragmented information and world leaders attempting to maintain order in the face of an enemy that did not respond, did not negotiate, and did not even acknowledge human attempts at communication, a different reality was unfolding far from public awareness, in facilities buried beneath mountains, oceans, and deserts, where projects long considered too dangerous, too theoretical, or too controversial had been developed in secrecy under the assumption that humanity's greatest threat would one day come from beyond its own world. In these hidden installations, systems that had never been activated were brought online with a sense of urgency that bordered on desperation. Artificial intelligences awakened from dormant states began processing tactical scenarios at speeds no human mind could match, and experimental weapon platforms, some relying on principles not fully understood even by their creators, were prepared for deployment against an enemy whose capabilities were still largely unknown. The alien empire, observing from orbit, continued its systematic dismantling of Earth's infrastructure, shutting down critical systems not through brute force, but through precise, almost surgical interference, as if they were not destroying a civilization but reorganizing it according to a predefined plan, confident that resistance would either fail or never materialize in any meaningful way. This assumption, however, was rooted in a fundamental misunderstanding of humanity itself, because while human societies often appeared divided, inefficient, and chaotic, they possessed a unique capacity to adapt under pressure, to innovate in the face of annihilation, and to unify when confronted with an existential threat. And it was precisely this unpredictable resilience that the invaders had failed to account for, setting the stage for a response that would not only challenge their expectations, but shatter them entirely. The turning point came not with a declaration, nor with a coordinated global counterattack announced to the world, but with a single, calculated action executed in silence from the depths of Earth's oceans, where hidden platforms activated and released concentrated beams of energy that pierced the atmosphere and struck the largest alien vessel with a force that caused its defensive systems to flare visibly for the first time since its arrival, marking the moment when the illusion of invulnerability was broken. What followed unfolded with staggering speed as additional weapons systems revealed themselves across the planet. From subterranean launch sites to disguised orbital debris that abruptly accelerated into lethal trajectories, transforming what had been perceived as inert remnants of humanity's past into high-velocity projectiles capable of tearing through alien structures with devastating efficiency. The skies, once dominated by the imposing stillness of the alien fleet, erupted into motion as ships attempted to reposition, deploy countermeasures, and assess a threat they had not anticipated, while on the ground, populations that had braced for inevitable defeat watched in disbelief as the invaders were not only challenged but damaged, their seemingly flawless advance disrupted by a species they had already categorized as inferior. This initial exchange did more than inflict physical losses. It altered the psychological landscape of the conflict, introducing uncertainty into the alien command structure and igniting a surge of determination within humanity, which now understood that survival was not only possible but dependent on the continued exploitation of the very qualities that had allowed it to endure countless crises throughout its history: ingenuity, adaptability, and an unyielding refusal to surrender. As the conflict escalated into full-scale warfare, the true extent of both sides' capabilities began to emerge, revealing a clash not only of technology, but of philosophy, with the alien empire relying on centralized control, overwhelming force, and a rigid strategic doctrine, while humanity embraced decentralization, improvisation, and rapid iteration, deploying unconventional tactics that often defied conventional military logic but proved remarkably effective against an adversary unaccustomed to such unpredictability. Artificial intelligence's coordinated defense networks that adapted in real time, learning from each engagement and optimizing responses faster than alien systems could compensate, while human commanders, freed from the constraints of traditional warfare by the existential nature of the conflict, authorized actions that would have been unthinkable in any previous era, leveraging experimental technologies and high-risk strategies to exploit vulnerabilities as soon as they were identified. Battles raged not only in the skies above major cities but across orbital pathways, deep-sea environments, and remote regions where hidden installations played critical roles in sustaining the resistance, and despite suffering significant losses, humanity maintained momentum by continuously evolving its approach, turning each setback into a source of data and each victory into a platform for further advancement. The alien empire, in contrast, began to exhibit signs of strain as its command hierarchy struggled to reconcile the discrepancy between its initial assessment of Earth and the reality of the ongoing resistance, leading to delays, miscalculations, and an increasing reliance on more aggressive measures that, while powerful, exposed additional weaknesses for humanity to exploit, gradually shifting the balance of power in a conflict that had begun with absolute certainty of one-sided domination. In the final phase of the war, humanity committed to a strategy that encapsulated everything it had become under the pressure of invasion, combining its most advanced technologies with a willingness to take risks that no rational adversary would consider acceptable, culminating in the deployment of a coordinated, multi-layered offensive designed to simultaneously disable, isolate, and destroy the remaining elements of the alien fleet. This operation relied on the integration of global defense networks, autonomous weapon systems, and a final experimental mechanism capable of disrupting the energy fields that sustained alien shielding, effectively stripping their vessels of the advantage that had once rendered them untouchable. And as the plan unfolded, the skies above Earth transformed into a theater of unprecedented scale and intensity, where the remnants of the invading force found themselves overwhelmed not by a single decisive blow, but by a relentless cascade of attacks that adapted in real time, leaving no opportunity for recovery or retreat. One by one, the massive ships that had once loomed over the planet fell, their destruction marking the end of a campaign that had been expected to last days, but instead concluded in a matter of hours, as humanity demonstrated that its greatest strength was not any single weapon or technology, but its collective ability to confront the unknown and transform it into something it could overcome. When the final alien vessel was destroyed and the skies cleared, the world that remained was irrevocably changed, not only by the devastation it had endured, but by the realization that it had faced an empire spanning the stars and survived, establishing a new understanding of its place in the universe and a clear message to any who might follow. Earth was not a resource to be claimed, nor a species to be subdued, but a force capable of defying even the most advanced civilizations, because humanity, when pushed to the brink, did not break. It evolved, adapted, and fought back, with a determination that no empire, no matter how powerful, could afford to underestimate.